Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 86.
I want to dive right into the incident itself because the spark that lights this massive fire is almost unbelievably petty. We get this narrative set up through a servant reporting back to the matriarch of the family, Zhu Auntie.
Right, the family is incredibly powerful.
Super powerful. Her son, Yu Pan, is essentially this incredibly wealthy, incredibly spoiled heir to their family fortune. He's stressed out by family drama at home, so he decides to go south for business. And, to blow off steam, he goes out drinking.
He invites a friend who lives a few hundred miles south of the city, and they happen to run into a very famous actor, Jian Yuhan, who has younger actors. They all end up in a tavern.
And here is where the absurdity of human ego just completely takes the wheel. Zhu Pan gets furious during this gathering.
Outraged.
Yeah, and the initial offense. A waiter at this tavern, a guy named Zhang San, keeps casting glances at the famous actor. He just keeps staring at Zhang Yuhan. That is it.
To understand why a simple stare provokes such intense anger, we really have to look at the dynamic of perceived disrespect and, the social strata of the time.
Right.
Zhu Pan doesn't just see a distracted waiter. He sees an infringement on his proprietary enjoyment of the evening. His wealth and status have conditioned him to believe that his environment should be, perfectly curated to his desires.
Like he owns the room.
Exactly. The waiter's wandering eyes are an affront to Zhu Pan's ego, because, in Zhu Pan's mind, a laborer has no right to engage visually with the entertainment. Zhu Pan is currently patronizing.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand the social hierarchy here. Is the actor considered high status because he's famous? Or is it purely about Zhu Pan feeling like he owns the room?
It's mostly the latter, but the status of actors in this era is notoriously complex. Actors were often socially marginalized, sometimes legally categorized in the lower tiers of society, yet they were highly sought after and fetishized by the wealthy elite.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Zhu Pan views the actor as a luxury commodity that he is currently enjoying. For a mere tavern waiter to stare at this actor is, to Zhu Pan, a violation of the social boundary. The waiter is acting above his station by partaking in the visual consumption of this elite entertainment.
So the actor eventually leaves, the night ends, but Zhu Pan is still simmering. He doesn't let it go.
Not at all.
The very next day, he goes back to drink with his friend again. He is actively looking for a reason to be mad, remembering the staring from the day before. He calls for the waiter, Zhang San, to change the wine, and the waiter is slow to respond.
Which is the trigger.
Right. Zhu Pan immediately starts cursing him out. The friend tries to intervene to smooth things over, but Zhu Pan picks up a heavy porcelain wine bowl and throws it.
And this is where the specific class dynamics turn a petty squabble into a fatal collision. The text specifically notes that this waiter, Zhang San, is a popey.
A popey? What exactly does that mean in this context?
It loosely translates to a rogue, a ruffian, or, a street-smart tough guy. A popey is someone who survives on the margins, often relying on intimidation, bluffing, and just having a thick skin.
So he's not easily scared.
Right. He isn't a subservient, cowering servant. When Zhu Pan throws the bowl and curses him, Zhang San doesn't back down.
He does the exact opposite. He physically leans in, sticks his head out, and dares Zhu Pan to hit him. He essentially says, "Go ahead, smash my head, I dare you."
This is a calculated, albeit desperate, bluff from the lower class. Zhang San is betting his life on the unwritten rules of society.
He thinks Zhu Pan won't actually do it.
Precisely. He is betting that this rich, soft gentleman might throw a tantrum, might throw a piece of porcelain at the wall, but won't actually cross the ultimate line into physical, deadly violence over a slow cup of wine in a public place.
Right.
He's daring Zhu Pan to prove his power, assuming the social taboo of outright murder will protect him.
But it's a fatal miscalculation. Zhu Pan doesn't hesitate. He takes the bowl and smashes it directly downward onto the waiter's skull. The physical reality of this is horrifying. The waiter goes from cursing back at Zhu Pan to bleeding out on the floor of the tavern.
It happens so fast.
He's silenced and then he's gone. If we put this in modern terms, this is like a bar fight over a spilled drink that escalates into manslaughter in a matter of seconds. It's a tiny, insignificant slight amplified by pure, unchecked ego into an irreversible tragedy.
Zhu Pan feels entirely entitled to violence. His wealth acts as an invisible psychological shield, convincing him that consequences simply do not apply to him in the same way they apply to someone like Zhang San.
And the terrifying part is, as we're about to see, he isn't wrong. His shield is very real.
Unfortunately, yes.
The moment the violence ends and the reality of the dead body sets in, The machinery of wealth and corruption immediately kicks in to rebuild reality.
We enter the phase of the cover-up, and the mechanics of this cover-up are an incredible demonstration of how power protects itself systemically. The news travels back to the family. Zhu Auntie is naturally terrified for her son's life.
Because it's a capital crime.
Exactly. She immediately starts pawning family items to raise liquid silver. She goes to the heavily connected Jia family, specifically Wang Lady, and the high-ranking officials Jia Xing, begging for political intervention.
I noticed Jia Zhang's response is incredibly slippery. He gives a very vague, non-committal promise to, look into it once the local magistrate makes a ruling.
Yeah, Jia Xing is a bureaucrat. He understands optics. He is keeping his hands perfectly clean and maintaining plausible deniability. He won't intervene directly while the case is hot in public.
That makes sense.
The real dirty work, the actual tampering, is being done on the ground by Zhu Pan's cousin Xu Ke, who writes a letter back to the family detailing their legal strategy.
That letter from Zhu Ke is a blueprint for subverting the justice system. He writes that they've hired a good teacher. Now, I have to assume teacher here is a euphemism, right? He's not hiring a tutor.
Far from it. Teacher, in this specific context, refers to a sangshi, which translates roughly to a litigation master or a legal fixer.
A fixer, like a mob lawyer.
Similar, yes. In the Qing Dynasty legal system, lawyers as we understand them today didn't really exist. There were no public defenders or prosecutors in the modern sense. The magistrate acted as detective, judge, and jury all rolled into one.
Wow, that's a lot of power for one guy.
It is. But there was this shadow industry of these litigation masters, men who possessed deep knowledge of the Qing legal code, the Da Qing Luli. They knew the loopholes, the precedents, and exactly how to draft a petition to force the magistrate's hand.
So this fixer isn't just a bagman handing over silver. He's a legal strategist.
Precisely. He identifies the weakest link in the chain of evidence. In this case, the physical evidence is clear, a dead body with a smashed skull. So the fixer targets the witness testimony. The weakest link is Wu Liang, the friend who was drinking with Zhu Pan and saw the whole thing.
The way they handle Wu Liang is terrifying. The fixer doesn't just offer him a bribe to change his story, he uses outright extortion.
Right, it's brutal.
Xu Ke's letter explicitly outlines the strategy because Wu Liang and Zhu Pan are both out-of-towners. The fixer threatens Wu Liang. He basically says, if you don't play ball and help us tear this case apart, we will tell the magistrate that you were the one who beat the waiter to death.
It's a ruthlessly efficient isolation tactic.
Yep.
They strip the witness of any leverage. They present him with a strict binary choice, become an accomplice to our perjury, or take the fall for a capital crime yourself.
Which is an insane choice to have to make.
For a merchant out-of-towner facing the immense, localized wealth and influence of the Su family, he knows he stands no chance in a finger-pointing contest. He complies.
Okay, so they have the eyewitness in their pocket. Now they have to completely rewrite the narrative of what happened. They draft a new legal petition to submit to the court. The lies in this document are breathtaking.
They are very deliberate.
They don't just say, it was self-defense. They actively transform an aggressive murder into a highly specific, bizarre accident.
The specifics of the lies are deeply tied to the mechanics of the Qing Penal Code. The first lie is foundational. They claim Xu Pan did not know the victim and had no prior grudge.
Why is that the starting point? Just to make Xu Pan look like a nice guy?
No, it's a strictly legal maneuver. Under the legal code, homicide was categorized into several distinct types, which carried vastly different punishments. Musha was premeditated murder, which almost always carried the death penalty.
Oh, okay.
By establishing that there was no prior grudge, the fixer is legally ruling out premeditation right out of the gate.
That makes sense. Then they move to line number 2. They completely erase the argument over the slow service. The petition claims that Xu Pan was just annoyed by the taste of the wine, so he simply poured it out onto the ground.
This targets the next tier of homicide duwusha, which is killing during an affray or a brawl.
A brawl?
Right. If two people are arguing and fighting and one dies, it is still a massive crime, often resulting in strangulation or severe exile. By erasing the verbal altercation, the fixer is trying to prevent the court from classifying this as a brawl.
Then comes line number 3, which is the mechanical centerpiece of the whole cover-up. They claim that just as Zhu Pan was pouring out the wine, the waiter, Zhang San, conveniently bent over to pick something up off the floor.
And line number 4, the grand finale, the bowl accidentally bumped his fontanelle, his skull, causing death.
Accidentally bumped. I'm looking at this and thinking, how on earth does a heavy bowl moving fast enough to crush a skull get categorized as an accidental bump?
It requires extreme linguistic gymnastics. They take a violent downward smashing motion driven by rage, and they reconstruct it as a tragic collision of trajectories.
Two paths crossing.
Exactly. Yupan's hand was merely moving downward to spill wine. Zhang San's head was merely moving downward to pick up a dropped item. Two innocent movements that happened to end in a fatality.
And the goal here is to hit a specific legal classification.
Exactly. They are aiming for Gushi-sha accidental killing. If a death is ruled a pure accident, entirely devoid of intent or conflict, the perpetrator could often redeem the punishment by paying a strict monetary fine to the victim's family rather than facing execution or exile.
Wow.
The entire petition is reverse engineered from the desired verdict.
Oh, and the petition also has to explain away the fact that Zupan initially confessed to beating the man to death. They write that he only said that because he was terrified of being tortured by the local authorities.
They thought of everything.
It is a calculated, wholesale rewriting of reality. But initially, the local magistrate looks at this petition and rejects it. He says the autopsy evidence is too solid, the initial confession's on the record, and this story is just too ridiculous to pass up the chain.
The system has a baseline level of integrity, or at least a baseline level of bureaucratic self-preservation.
Yeah, he wants to keep his job.
Exactly. The local magistrate knows that if he accepts a blatant lie and his superiors review the case, he could lose his position. The autopsy report is the sticking point. The physical evidence of a crushed skull doesn't match an accidental bump.
So what does the Zhu family do? They escalate. Zhu Auntie spends thousands of silver in the capital to buy off the magistrate from the top down.
A massive bribe.
Yeah, they essentially purchase a retrial. And that brings us into the courtroom, the yamen, for what is effectively a kangaroo court. The first person we hear from in this new trial is the victim's mother, Zhang Wangxi.
Her testimony is crucial because it grounds this entire bureaucratic, legalistic nightmare in raw, devastating human reality.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. She cries out to the magistrate, detailing the immense tragedy of her life. Her husband died 18 years ago. Her first two sons are already dead. Zhang San, the waiter, was her only surviving child.
Oh my God.
He was 23, unmarried, and working in that tavern just to keep them from starving to death.
She describes the moment she was called to the tavern. She ran in, and she saw her only remaining son lying on the floor in a massive pool of blood. He was gasping for air, unable to speak, and then he just died right in front of her.
Right.
She is begging the magistrate for justice. She calls him a Kingchen Laoi, a blue sky lord.
Blue Sky Lord is a deeply traditional honorific used by commoners to address a judge they believe to be incorruptible.
Yeah.
Someone who sees the truth as clearly as a cloudless sky.
Which is awful.
It's a tragic irony, given what we know is about to happen.
Because the fix is already in. The justice system here is functioning as pure theater. The tavern owner, Lai who previously testified against Zupan, suddenly develops amnesia.
Very convenient.
Very. He tells the magistrate, "Oh, I was at the counter. I only heard people yelling about someone being hurt. I didn't actually see the fight happen."
He is creating plausible deniability.
Yeah.
He legally removes his eyewitness status so he can't be cross-examined on the details of the brawl.
Then Wu Liang, the extorted drinking buddy, steps up. He sticks perfectly to the fabricated accident script the fixer wrote. He tells the court, "Yupan splashed the wine, the bowl slipped, bumped his head. Pure accident."
He hits all the required marks.
And this is where I get really confused by the magistrate's behavior. The magistrate knows he's been bribed. He knows the story is fake. But he makes this massive show of anger.
Oh, yelling.
Yes. He yells at Wu Liang. He points out that Wu Liang's original testimony was completely different. He threatens to have Wu Liang beaten and tortured for changing his story. Why put on the performance? Who is he performing for?
He is performing for the imperial bureaucratic audit system. In the Qing dynasty, capital cases, any case involving a death, were not finalized at the local level.
So they go up the ladder.
Exactly. The case files had to be meticulously prepared, recorded, and sent up the chain of command to the provincial level, and ultimately to the Board of Punishments in the capital. The magistrate cannot just blindly accept a changed testimony. It looks suspicious on paper.
So the yelling and the threats are essentially for the court scribes.
Precisely. The scribes are recording everything. The magistrate has to demonstrate on the official record that he rigorously interrogated the witness, that he threatened him with torture to ensure he was telling the truth now, and that the witness maintained the news story under severe duress.
It's all about the paper trail.
It creates a paper trail of judicial diligence. He yells, Wu Liang begs for mercy and swears the new story is true, and the magistrate reluctantly accepts it. The paperwork looks clean.
The performance continues with Su Pan, who repeats the exact same I dropped the bowl story. And then comes the absolute darkest part of this entire trial, the new autopsy report. The magistrate calls the coroner.
The manipulation of the physical evidence is the final necessary step to close the loop. You cannot rule a death an accidental bump if the official coroner's report says the skull is caved in from blunt force trauma.
The new, officially sanctioned report states that there are no signs of a fight on the body. The fatal wound has been legally downgraded. It is now officially classified as a 1.7-inch cut, half an inch deep, which caused a slight fracture.
How does a coroner justify this? There were highly standardized forensic manuals at the time, the most famous being the Wu Yuan Lu, or the washing away of wrongs.
A forensic manual?
Yes, and these manuals detailed exactly how to measure and categorize wounds.
Oh.
By changing the measurements on the official form, reducing the depth and width of the trauma, the coroner legally shifts the cause of death from a lethal strike to a minor injury that unfortunately resulted in death.
That's incredibly corrupt.
A 1.7-inch cut is survivable, therefore the death is a tragic anomaly, an accident.
They are taking a shattered skull and legally defining it as a paper cut, and the magistrate just accepts it. He cross-references this fabricated coroner's document with the fabricated witness testimony, nods his head, and tells the clerks to finalize the paperwork.
From a strictly systemic perspective, the efficiency is staggering. They haven't just ignored the truth. They have utilized the very instruments of truth, the witness testimony, the coroner's report, the judge's ruling to legally codify a lie.
Yeah.
The system is working exactly as it was designed to, just in the service of the highest bidder.
Think about the victim's mother in this moment. She saw her son's beaten, broken body with her own eyes. She knows he was murdered, and yet she is standing in a room surrounded by the ultimate authorities of her society, and they are all looking her in the eye and telling her, legally and officially, that her reality did not happen.
Gaslighting on a state level.
Exactly. Even her brother-in-law, the victim's uncle, turns to her and says, "The judge has ruled it was an accident. Stop making a fuss." It is the profound, ultimate expression of powerlessness. The system doesn't just take her son. It takes her fundamental right to define how he died.
She is completely erased by the bureaucracy.
So the murderer is essentially getting off with a slap on the wrist, a fine to be paid to the family later. But before the final red stamp can be put on the paperwork, the imperial government throws a massive wrench into the gears.
Right, a huge shift in the narrative here.
We get this incredible transition from the gritty, localized corruption of the courtroom directly into the high-level existential anxiety of the imperial palace. The trial is suddenly paused because the magistrate is immediately drafted to manage road repairs for a royal funeral.
The emperor has suspended court for 3 days. It's a period of state mourning. And this sudden pivot introduces us to the rumor mill of the Jia household.
While Su Auntie is breathing a sigh of relief over the trial, the Jia family, the political titans who are supposed to protect them, are spiraling into an absolute panic. The source of their power, their anchor to the throne, is one of their daughters, Yuan Fei, who is an imperial consort. But there's massive confusion about what is happening in the palace.
The matriarch, Jia Mother, has a dark, deeply unsettling dream. In the dream, the imperial consort, Yuan Fei, appears to her alone and delivers a chilling, cryptic message. Glory ends easily. You must step back.
The very next morning, the panic amplifies. Word comes from the palace that a consort is sick and all the noble ladies are summoned. The family is terrified that their golden goose, Yuan Fei, is dying.
That would ruin them.
But then, almost immediately, news breaks that it's a consort Zhu, different consort, who has actually passed away.
The immediate relief in the household is palpable, but the underlying anxiety lingers. In this literary tradition, dreams are rarely just subconscious processing. They are prophetic leaks from the spiritual realm.
So the dream was real.
Yes. The near miss with the consort's death triggers the maids in the household to start gossiping, bringing up a prophecy from a mysterious fortune teller from years ago.
This is where we get into the astrological determinism. Bao Chai, Xu Pan's sister, relays this gossip. She explains the incredibly specific astrological details of the imperial consort's birth chart. The fortune teller noted she was born in the Jiaxian year on a Bingyin day.
Right.
I need you to break this down for me because to a modern listener, this just sounds like random dates. What is the actual mechanism of this astrology?
To understand this, we have to look at the sexagenary cycle, or the Ganzi system. which is the foundational mechanism of traditional Chinese timekeeping and astrology.
Yeah.
It combines 10 heavenly stems and 12 earthly branches to create a 60-year cycle. Every year, month, day, and hour is assigned a pair of these characters. This makes up a person's Bazi, or 4 pillars of destiny.
So it's not just you're a Leo, it's a deeply complex mathematical grid.
Exactly. And within this grid, each stem and branch is associated with one of the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. The fortune teller is analyzing the interplay of these elements in her specific birth pillars.
What do you find?
Her chart contained what was called a flying heaven fortune, or flying heaven status. The specific alignment indicated a destiny of extreme elevation. She was structurally, elementally fated for royalty.
But the fortune teller offered a warning. He said her glory would not last long. The danger would come if she encountered a yin year and a Mao month. And it used this specific metaphor: too much carving ruins the wood. What does that mean in the context of these elements?
Let's look at the literal elements involved. A Jiashan year involves wood and metal. A Binjin day involves fire and wood. The metaphor, too much carving ruins the wood, is a direct reference to the elemental clash between wood and metal.
Metal cuts wood.
Right. In Chinese metaphysics, metal chops or carves wood. A certain amount of carving is necessary to take a raw block of wood and turn it into something useful or beautiful. The status, the elevation, the flying heaven fortune, that is the carving.
So the imperial consort is the block of wood. The Jia family's wealth, her royal titles, the intense political pressure, all of that is the metal carving her into a masterpiece.
Precisely. If you carve a block of wood with intricate filigree, delicate lattices, and massive amounts of detail, it becomes breathtakingly beautiful. It becomes an object of supreme high status. But in the process of making it beautiful, you have removed its structural integrity. It becomes fragile. It can no longer bear weight.
Wow.
The fortune teller is warning that she has been elevated and refined to such a dangerous degree that she's fundamentally brittle. When she hits the specific temporal alignment of a yin year and a Mao month, which brings an overwhelming influx of more wood element, her fragile, overcarved structure will simply snap under the pressure.
Suipan gets away with murder because he has limitless power. But what happens when that same limitless power is threatened from above? The family realizes money can't buy off the emperor, and it certainly can't buy off the stars.
They are trapped by it.
They are burdened and terrified by their own elevation. And this concept of hyper-refinement leading to fragility is the absolute core of where we're going next. We are leaving the noisy, corrupt world of trials, bribes, and palace rumors. We follow the character Bao Yu as he seeks a sanctuary.
Bao Yu escapes the family panic and wanders over to the Jiaxiang Guan, the bamboo-filled courtyard of his cousin Daiyu.
Yeah.
He steps out of the chaotic, lying world of the courtroom and into Daiyu's incredibly quiet, isolated room.
And what he finds her doing is, well, to him, it looks like she's reading an alien language. He looks over her shoulder at the book on her desk, and he describes what he sees. He doesn't recognize a single character.
Not one.
He says it looks like the word for large, placed next to the word for night, with a hook added to it and a 5 jammed in the middle. It's a visual puzzle. He literally calls it a heavenly script.
He teases her, saying she must be reading books from heaven because she's so advanced. But Daiyu laughs at him and says, "You call yourself a scholar, and you've never even seen a zither score."
What she is reading is jianzipu, a highly specialized form of musical notation used specifically for the guin, the ancient Chinese 7-stringed zither. Why doesn't Bayu recognize it? If you or I look at modern sheet music, we see notes on a staff, a C sharp, a B flat. We know it's music.
Bai doesn't recognize it because Jianzipu is not meant to be read as phonetic language, nor does it indicate pitch in the way Western sheet music does. Jianzipu translates to reduced character score.
Reduced character.
Right. It takes elements of different Chinese characters and mashes them together into a single complex cluster.
I think of it like a choreographer's dance steps. The notation doesn't tell you what sound to make. It physically tells you where to put your body to create the sound.
That is a perfect analogy. It is a biomechanical instruction manual. Let's break down the specific example that I've been taking. Daiyu saw the large character combined with the 9 and the 5. Daiyu explains the mechanics. The large character indicates the thumb. The 9 means the player must use their left thumb to press down on the 9th hui.
What is a hui?
The hui are the inlaid markers running along the edge of the quook. The instrument has no frets. Instead, there are 13 dots, usually made of mother of pearl or gold, inlaid into the lacquered wood.
Oh, beautiful.
These aren't just random markers. They indicate the harmonic nodes, the aliquot parts of the string. Pressing at exactly the ninth weed produces a specific pitch and a specific overtone, so the left hand is positioned. Then the hook with the 5 indicates the action of the right hand. It must pluck the 5th string inward towards the player's body.
It's a secret physical code, but why write music like that? Why not just write the notes?
Because in the tradition of the guqin, the instrument is not just a tool for producing a melody, it is a tool for spiritual and physical alignment.
The mind-body connection.
Yes. The notation emphasizes the physical, tactile relationship between the player and the silk string. The specific way your finger strikes the string, the flesh versus the nail, the specific direction of the pluck. All of this fundamentally changes the timbre, the resonance, and the tone color of the note. In Chinese musical aesthetics, the quality of the single tone is often more important than the melody itself.
Dayu even lists these ancient, highly specific tactile techniques to Baoyu. She talks about yin, which is a subtle, lingering vibrato created by rocking the finger. She talks about ru, a deeper kneading of the string, chuo, zu, sliding, flying, pushing. It's an entire vocabulary of touch.
It is an auditory manifestation of physical intent, which leads directly into the core philosophy that Dayu espouses. When Baoyu gets excited and says, "This is amazing, we should all learn how to play," Dayu immediately stops him.
She shuts that down fast.
She makes it clear that this is not a casual hobby or a parlor trick.
She drops this profound explanation. Qin means to restrain. The very word for the instrument is deeply, historically linked to the concept of prohibition, of ultimate self-control. She says it was invented by the ancients to cultivate character, to suppress luxury, and to banish inappropriate or wandering thoughts.
The requirements she lists for even attempting to play are staggering. It is a rigid, demanding ritual rooted in Taoist and Neo-Confucian ideals of harmony.
Let me list these prerequisites for you because the level of discipline is mind-blowing. Dayu says you need a perfectly quiet room or a high tower, or you need to be deep in a forest or on a mountain peak.
Very specific locations.
You must wear clean, specific, elegant clothing. She mentions a crane cloak. You must burn incense to clear the air. You must wash your hands. You sit perfectly centered, aligning your physical body with the 5th marker of the instrument. Your posture must be flawless, your breathing regulated.
And she grounds this extreme discipline in ancient cultural lore. She invokes Shi Kuang, a legendary blind musician from the spring and autumn period who could supposedly summon wind, rain, and dragons simply by playing with perfect alignment.
Dragons.
Yeah, dragons. She also mentions Confucius learning the qin from the master Shi Shang. Confucius played a single piece repeatedly until he was able to deduce not just the melody, but the exact physical appearance, the personality, and the dark complexion of the music's composer, King Wen of Zhou, just by feeling the spirit of the notes.
And finally, she brings up the concept of the Xian.
The Xian, literally the knower of the sound. It refers to the ultimate soulmate who truly understands the depth of your music.
Right.
The legend of Bo Ya and Zongziki, when Zongziki died, Bo Ya smashed his gunkin and never played again because there was no one left in the world who could truly hear him.
I want to pause here and look at the staggering structural contrast of this text. In the first half, we watched Su Pan. He possessed zero restraint. He couldn't restrain his irritation over a waiter's wandering eyes.
Not even a little bit.
He couldn't restrain his anger over a slow cup of wine. And because of his total lack of internal boundaries, he violently murdered a man and let his family's corrupt money sweep it away.
It's a perfect dichotomy. Su Pan represents the absolute chaotic destruction caused by a lack of restraint and the external application of unearned power. And then you have Dayu.
She's the opposite.
She believes in a restraint so extreme, so absolute, that she has to meticulously align her clothing, her breathing, her physical environment, and her soul, just to pluck a single silk string on a piece of wood.
It's the ultimate dichotomy of the human experience as portrayed in this source material. The external, violent world of power versus the internal, hyper-regulated world of aesthetics and philosophy. But, as we are about to see in our final scene, extreme restraint and hyper-refinement carry their own unique, devastating danger.
While Baoyu and Dayu are having this beautiful, deep conversation about music, restraint, and soulmates, a maid arrives. She brings a gift from the lady of the house, 2 pots of gorgeous, freshly bloomed orchids.
They are rare, twin-bloomed orchids, a symbol of refinement, beauty, and the absolute peak of spring. Baoyu is riding high on the philosophical conversation. He's excited.
Right, he's feeling inspired.
He looks at the flowers and innocently suggests to Dayu, hey, since you understand the music so well and now you have these beautiful orchids in your room, You can play the ancient piece, solitary orchid.
He's just trying to be a supportive, enthusiastic friend. He is making a logical, aesthetic connection.
But he accidentally trips a massive existential wire. Dayu's reaction is immediate, silent, and heartbreaking. She looks at these vibrant, fresh spring flowers, and instead of feeling joy, she enters a sudden, dramatic spiral of melancholy.
It's a very intense shift.
She looks at the blooming life in front of her, and she compares herself to the fading willow of autumn.
She looks at the flowers and thinks, the plants and trees are in their spring, fresh and lush. But I, though I am young, am already like the withering willow of late autumn.
That is so sad.
She becomes terrified that her life, like the spring flowers that will inevitably be ruined by wind and rain, will be brief, tragic, and ultimately destroyed. She begins to weep silently, the tears falling down her face, leaving Baoyu and the maids completely baffled.
Baoyu is just standing there, utterly confused. He's thinking, I just said you should play a song about the flower. What did I do?
To understand Dayu's reaction, we have to unpack the immense psychological weight she carries. And we had to connect her back to the fortune teller's metaphor we discussed earlier, the overcarved wood.
How does that apply to Dayu? She doesn't have the political pressure of the imperial consort.
No, but she is the ultimate emotional and intellectual example of the overcarved wood. Dayu is so sensitive, so hyper-intellectual, so deeply attuned to the philosophy of the universe that she lacks the thick skin required to simply exist in the world.
Right.
She is suffering from a physical wasting illness, likely consumption or tuberculosis, which makes her physically fragile. But her mind is constantly carving away at her own reality.
She is too refined for her own good.
Exactly. A normal person, even someone as empathetic as Baoyu, could look at a flower and just appreciate the bloom. What a pretty flower. But Dayu cannot simply enjoy it. Her brilliance isolates her.
She sees too much.
The mere sight of blooming life instantly inevitably reminds her of its opposite mortality decay, her own physical fragility, and her impending death. Her sensitivity is so immense, so overcarved, that a single innocent comment from a friend suffocates her with existential dread. The orchids aren't a gift, they are a ticking clock.